All right, Armando, well, we just got an inventory of the time, so you know how much it was. 25% of your speech was the opening story. So it goes on way too long. You need to get to the point a little bit more quickly. You know, I clocked in at 2 minutes and 30 seconds when we finally got to the thesis statement. So your subject area, I think, was pretty clear from the beginning, but you need to get through that story and to the setup. And once you got there, the setup was fine. I thought you did okay signposting on the first point, but then after that, it wasn't quite as clear as it should be. I think you bounce around on some pretty unusual examples to talk about animal cruelty. The circus issue, for instance, and the serial killers. To me, that seems like they would be speeches on their own, separate subjects to talk about. You're talking about the kind of everyday cruelty that's going to go on because of your suggestions, your solutions that you have at the end. None of them apply to abuse of animals in circuses, and none of them are going to work for people who are sick enough to be serial killers. So those are not really the ones that are a part of your speech. What you want to be talking about is the neglect that people have, the casual abuse that goes on, the cruelty that kids might engage in because they're trying to impress each other, you know, those sorts of things. I think those are your real supporting points. Sometimes you've got a good example, but you don't seem confident enough with the example. You're trying to paraphrase it. If you've got a quote or description of the example, don't be afraid of giving us the quote or reading the example and giving us a source citation on it, because your paraphrases, sometimes it just sounds like you're making stuff up. And I know that you didn't make up the stuff about the tiger, but you know, there was this tiger and maybe it had this patch of skin that it didn't quite grow the skin back or something, I don't know. And I'm going, well, if you don't know, why am I supposed to believe you? So you have to be a little bit more confident, and that's why you want to cite that information more clearly. And go ahead and take the direct quotes, and then you won't be kind of struggling to put it in your own words. I know you want the argument to be in your own words, but the examples, they need to be descriptive, and I think that you run into a little bit of a problem with that. The presentation issues, actually, I think are pretty solid. You do a good job talking to the audience from the beginning. You're looking up at us. You've got a pretty good variety in your voice. So you're doing fine on that. I think your emotional appeals could be a little bit stronger if you, like I said, were tighter on those examples that you had. What's missing, I think, is a little bit of statistical information that talks about how widespread this kind of abuse is, how typical these sorts of things are, and then what the nature of the abuse falls into. I mean, like I said, you've got two pretty exceptional examples that you're talking about: circus animals and serial killers, and my guess is the vast majority of abuse is much more widespread, and it's everyday kind of stuff. And there's got to be stuff from the Humane Society or Pounds, those kinds of things, talk about how many neglected dogs they get in, how many people are being prosecuted. You mentioned the one guy in Louisiana who got 10 years in prison. I'm still trying to figure out why Michael Vick isn't still in prison, you know, instead of being cheered on the football field.